Welcome to the studio here in Paris. We're talking about the changing face of energy infrastructure with Cisco. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you.
In this ever more connected world, so many devices, how do you deal with the threat of security?
Yeah, I think one thing we've seen from customers across industries, but here especially, is as more devices are becoming connected and digitized, that is a big concern. As my threat surface has increased, and of course utilities are attractive critical infrastructure for nation states or others to potentially attack. So one of the capabilities that we've recently added, and actually are highlighting here at the show, is a technology we call Cisco Cyber Vision. And the idea of cyber vision is to be able to understand what's attached to the network beneath it. So not just what the IP addresses are, but actually what those devices are, who made them, what version of firmware they're at, and how they interact with each other. And so from that, you can then start to detect anomalies where you see either devices you don't expect or behaviors you don't expect. So things like we saw in Ukraine where there were unexpected behaviors, things opening when they shouldn't, things being sent messages they shouldn't. It might have been legitimate, a legitimate source talking to a legitimate destination, but not saying something you would expect it to say. So that capability we see is really an important advancement in security. Kind of the first step in security is understanding what you have and how they're talking. Because once you know that, then you can start to actually secure them and enforce policies.
Scalability is obviously an important part of what you do. How do you make these rollouts efficient?
Yeah, I mean, that's another challenge. It's one thing to go from a proof of concept where you might have 10, 50, hundreds of devices, but if you're talking about connecting thousands or tens of thousands of substations, now the ability to automate it, to do what we call zero-touch deployment, so try to templatize things, have the system do the repetitive work and roll things out, providing management tools that are very easy for people to interact with. It's really a system-level problem, and you need to think about it in terms of the devices at one end of the system, but also the management tools at the other, and how do you make that whole process as seamless and as easy to run as you can.
One of the frustrations I've heard about in the last few days is the rate of change and industry's ability to keep up with innovation. Is that a frustration that you share?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult balance, right? Because technology can be moving very rapidly, but the assets you're putting in last for a very long time. So there's this inherent disconnect between those two rates of innovation and movement. I think the question is, how do you not over rotate one side versus the other? You can't be held hostage to the equipment you have in the past. You really need a way to move forward, and that's, I guess, one of the other big challenges we see is the complexity that brings, because you have this mix of generations. You want to build that incorporates things in the past, but kind of build towards the future. And I think that is something that we try to work on and help our customers with as much as we can, is how do we reduce that complexity and bring them forward. But for sure it's a challenge in the industry.
Difficult problems to solve.
It is a difficult problem to solve.
Thanks so much for your insights.
Yep, you're welcome.
Be sure to subscribe to our channels for more digitally related content.